And welcome to this Saturday Newsroom. We're broadcasting from our studios here in Kanifing along the SC Highway. I am Maria Abdumseka, and thanks for joining us. Coming up, URR communities promised President Barrow 99.9% support following several infrastructure launches. President Barrow launches massive 44-kilometer rural road project in Woolly and Sandu districts. Now, in Africa's human rights cases, regional legal rulings often fail to deliver justice to victims. GRA partners with World Bank and ATAF to tackle cross-border tax evasion. And Scorpions Fans Club swaps drums for brooms to launch 25th anniversary at Serekunda Market. On international news, Ebola case in Goma triggers border closure as fears grow in eastern DR Congo. Mali truck drivers defy armed group blockade to keep Bamako supplied. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. Many thanks for joining us. Now, residents and political leaders in the Upper River region have pledged overwhelming support for President Adam Barrow ahead of the December elections, following the launch of several multi-million-dollar road projects. According to the president, his administration is using local funding mechanisms to drive national development. Lamin Ba is with the president, and he now reports.
As part of his administration's drive for balanced national development, President Barrow extended the Connect Gambia Road Infrastructure Program to the districts of Woolly West, Woolly East, and Sandu, where large crowds gathered to witness the launch of another major rural road initiative. The latest ceremony was held at Yorobawol, where the president officially laid the foundation stone for Lot 8 of the ambitious road construction project aimed at improving connectivity and easing transportation challenges in remote communities. Yorobawol, Kawunku, and Fodekunda were among the key stops on the president's ongoing development tour as the government intensifies efforts to expand the network of modern roads across rural Gambia. The initiative forms part of a broader national agenda to open up communities, stimulate economic activity, and improve access to essential social services. Speaking at the event, Alhaji Ibrahima Suri Juara, Chief of Woolly, welcomed President Barrow and his delegation while expressing appreciation for the development progress registered under the current administration.
URR, CRR, atol kamune wuri alka ko silo falka silo le domo. Oi, ono URR, CRR ono kondu luko do law esko ko law jamoto. Kay kon de bilem la ka ti uluta banjul le de man futi banjul kabiri la life ya beke danjul le te man silo la nafalo. Oi,
Yuba Juara, Vice Chairman, Basi Area Council, also reflected on the difficulties residents endured before the construction of the Basi Bridge, stressing the importance of road infrastructure to national development. He remarked that anyone who underestimates the importance of roads must be living in Banjul. In his reaction to those asking if roads give them food in URR.
Senegal.
Governor of Upper River Region, Honorable Usman Ba, assured residents that all the roads for which foundation stones were laid would be fully constructed. He further pledged that the entire 400 kilometers earmark under the project would be completed, assuring that everything will be constructed.
Sila wosila menyanta domula flanu kono karma beroni ya wasale wosilo be domula. Me ari flanu kane woni leli passe me woni ni hare kama e me hedi no kibari hedi no kane kono o haye godo o gola kala na woni der project o golle do me gola no kane der flanu sudu wol be woni nyama tinki jobe woni nyama sudu wol kono woni tinki jobe kono woni bi fanan nada konkuba na bero loje woto wo fanan silol men nyanta do bula sandu wo bere kilo ya wasale wo silol fanan be do konkuga bagari be wali do haye kala na wo fonde bolbe e sandu on kare wo haye do yoni yero bawol fanan wulli mes na silol be ya la yero bawol le wo fanan yero bawol wasale an fode kunda fanan la bero ni ay wulli isbe fanan wasale me ari yero bawol le wali do haye on la e wo haye fodo kala na wo fonde bolbe de wulli wulli on kare do yoni wulli funda gari fode kunda on kare yoni kala na wo do kana jan kana hakilo sunya kana hakilo tinya ka foko imaje ye bero la janne adonna silo tije silo be.
President Barrow's administration says the ongoing projects are intended to transform the rural landscape by linking farming communities to markets, schools and health facilities, while also boosting trade and social integration. In his address, President Barrow noted that since assuming office in 2017, many people have ventured into politics with the belief that financial resources alone are enough to succeed. He maintained, however, that political success requires more than money. The president reiterated that others want conflict in this election. However, he emphasized with his government's commitment there will always be peace.
lafta sonko ni kelo la pour election o kanaki
wonde ko sonko e halade fara pour wote wota wad
ite lafta wala
tambe ko dum be fala
bar ndel man pare wala
me wona be pare
man sakunda be delle bulu
lamu mun ko mele dogi
ndel nyanda kayro sabari ni ni ko men be keta
kala ko wala
akunta kayro le ko
jammo wala
ni kayro de keri
jam wala
ni te kero
ko golle wata wala
ora linga kayro sabari
wala jamati je jam
ndel siata
menen buri he
ndel ngeno
menen nay waji
yo lonni
kambe bi andi
akoyte male
to lawani
lew ala yeda nyaami ko baluri ne bari be falale ya lonni president Barrow ni nyilte lolo nyoti
fogo ani president Barrow be do dakata
iko be kafula lu janne be contane
wala be kafay do
be kafu e mbiri kulina ti yaji
fogo do hawta be adam mbiri ko do
suraka mo dor mu danu
c'est le sebele
suraka mo dor mu dal wolo ni nga busa to ay bus ay ni a lippe do ay busan
Lot 8 of the project covers several strategic routes including the Salame to Kaunkuba, Sare Yoroki to Sare Damba, Welingara Bakari to Sare Patelu, extending to Ndumbe. With a total span of 22.3 kilometers, the project also includes Fode Kunda, Camber, and Modulo Kunda Senkoli Kunda, and Fode Kunda, with 22 kilometers. Residents across the project areas welcomed the initiative with excitement, describing it as a major breakthrough that will significantly improve mobility and reduce long-standing transportation difficulties, particularly during the rainy season. President Barrow reiterated that infrastructure development remains a cornerstone of his government's agenda, with road connectivity continuing to play a central role and rural transformation across the country. Laminba, Star TV News.
Several remote communities in the Upper River region are celebrating a major breakthrough in mobility as President Barrow expanded his Connect Gambia infrastructure initiative to Wuli and Sandu districts, launching over 44 kilometers of new roads to transform the rural economy. Laminba again.
Following a series of infrastructure launches across the two regions, President Barrow met with residents of Suduwal and Tikinjo, where community members expressed appreciation for what they describe as the government's visible commitment to rural transformation through infrastructural development. Residents noted that the projects reflect the administration's determination to deliver on its development agenda and improve the living conditions of Gambians, particularly those in rural communities. Across the visited communities, large crowds turned out to welcome the president and his delegation, expressing optimism that the ongoing road projects would help ease transportation challenges, improve access to healthcare and markets, and stimulate economic activities throughout the rural regions.
President,
Excellency President,
Commander-in-Chief,
Republic of the Gambia,
Secretary General, MPP, National People Party,
Flag
Flag bearer, winning candidate,
2026,
99.99%.
99.9.
Alaji Bubu Drame, NPP regional chairman, while speaking at the gathering, declared that the people owe President Barrow political support in return for the development projects, promising overwhelming backing for him in the December elections with 99.9%. Director General of the National Roads Authority, Suleiman Sumare Jane, praised the dedication and hard work of engineers, contractors, and workers involved in the ongoing road projects across the regions. He further highlighted the socio-economic importance of road infrastructure, noting that the roads under construction are designed to meet all weather standards and long-term durability requirements.
The roads launched today are therefore not simply construction works, they are enablers of productivity, social inclusion, and economic resilience. From a technical perspective, all the road projects under these lots will be constructed to all weather standards. The works commence with accurate surveying and setting up to ensure proper alignments. Thereafter, earthworks will shape a stable road formation with the appropriate camber to safely drain surface water away from the carriageway.
Addressing the gathering, President Barrow stated that the foundation stone laid during the day were part of a broader national development strategy and not isolated projects. He further disclosed that the initiatives are being financed through local funding mechanisms, underscoring his government's commitment to sustainable national development.
385 kilometers across the Upper River region and 395 kilometers in the Central River region. Equally significant is how this work is being financed through our own domestic resources. Using an innovative financing mechanism designed by this government. This is a powerful demonstration of our growing capacity to drive our own development without dependence on external borrowing. These new roads will extend our reach further into both regions, ensuring that no community is left behind, and will bring real and lasting benefits to the people. For the farmers in both regions, especially those producing groundnuts, sesame, cereals, and other crops. This road will reduce transport costs, limit post-harvest losses, improve access to markets, and help them to secure better prices for their produce.
Barrow's government promised to reach all corners of the country with national infrastructural developments. Laminba, Star TV News.
Now imagine fighting for years to win a landmark court battle against state torture, modern-day slavery, or unlawful detention. You win, the highest human rights court on the continent rules in your favor, and then nothing happens. Well, a damning new report launched at the African Commission's 87th Ordinary Session reveals that for thousands of victims across Africa, international legal victories are dying on arrival. The study by the Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa warns that a systemic refusal by member states to implement court rulings is pushing the continent's human rights system to the brink of collapse. More in this report. It was hailed as a blueprint for accountability, gathered at the Sadauda Karabajora International Conference Center. Top legal minds, human rights commissioners, and civil society leaders watched as the Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa launched a groundbreaking report titled Making Human Rights Decisions Matter, Regional Insights and Best Practices on Implementation in Africa.
Across all African countries, regional and sub-regional human rights mechanisms outline or continue to issue important decisions protecting victims of various human rights violations. However, if you look across many of the decisions that touch on these grave human rights decisions, all right, implementation is either partially implemented, delayed, or they're entirely ignored by states.
Based on 7 national dialogues spanning from Cameroon to Malawi, Mali to Nigeria, Guinea to Sierra Leone, together with the regional consultation in Dakar, the report uncovers a staggering truth. Regional bodies are delivering historic rulings on human rights, but African governments are simply plugging their ears. Over the last 20 years, regional and sub-regional codes have built a progressive legal landscape for Africa, but according to data tracking compliance from 2023 up to May 2025, those judgments rarely translate into real-world change. The figures are frankly shocking. For the African Commission, more than half of its 300 decisions have been entirely ignored. The African Committee on Child Rights, 70% left unaddressed. At the sub-regional level, the numbers drop off a cliff. The ECOWAS Code has fully executed just 2 out of more than 250 judgments. In East Africa, state resistance is so severe that the court hasn't even been able to build a system to follow up on its own rulings. Maria Sen, advocacy officer at the Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa, gives us a breakdown of the report.
Victims face difficulties in navigating implementation processes. Victims are not even aware of the processes that are going on. They don't know who to reach out to. The communication doesn't exist between them and states, so it's difficult for them to monitor and ask for accountability in most cases because they don't know what is going on. So this came across in all countries that we visited and engaged on during the dialogue. The fourth one being the interministerial coordination is often weak, except maybe for Malawi, which had an interministerial committee that led to the almost full implementation of the decision that we had litigated before regional mechanisms. So that is a classic example of how an interministerial coordination often leads to implementation of decisions.
Michael Giyan-Nyako of the Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa, speaking at the launch, said the gap between judgment and justice continues to undermine the credibility of the African human rights system.
That if their decisions are not really having the kind of impact that those litigants want those decisions to have, then it is reducing confidence and perhaps even the legitimacy that the people view these mechanisms. So for us, what we learn from this dialogue is that implementation has to be a collective effort. We appreciate that the state is the primary duty bearer and therefore must take the lead role in being accountable and ensuring that the decisions are implemented. But we all have roles to play.
A high-level panel discussion highlighted the cause of that enforcement gap and underscored the need for stronger systems to help victims translate rulings into real-world outcomes. Panelists included Emmanuel D. Diouf, chairperson of the Gambia's National Human Rights Commission, Dr. Joseph Bigon of Amnesty International, and Joseph Philistas, a senior legal expert seconded to the African Commission on Human and People's Rights.
Decisions has traveled across borders, but implementation never passed immigration. I think this is what the problem is in this case. Limited awareness also, it's a problem that was raised. Many citizens do not know these decisions exist. Sometimes even government officials are unfamiliar with them. Media coverage is very often limited. And if people do not know about decisions, there is little pressure for implementation. Human rights decision must not end in the courtrooms or conference halls, hotel meetings, or beautiful written communiques. It must ultimately be felt in communities, in institutions, and the daily lives of our people. That's what we are trying to do. That is the true measure of implementation. And if we are genuinely serious about justice, democracy, accountability, and human dignity in Africa, implementation must become our collective responsibility and not merely a legal afterthought.
So, why is the journey from judgment to justice ending in total frustration? The report points to a toxic mix of institutional barriers, which include blatant lack of political will, no enforcement mechanisms, and a hidden legal trap. Experts say states ratify treaties as political signaling, then ignore adverse rulings. Courts lack police power, rely on rare sanctions, and dualist systems require domestic incorporation.
If you look at the report, there are a few challenges that we were able to highlight. First of which is the political challenges, looking at resistance to accountability and the lack of a political will. This mainly touches on cases that are politically sensitive, that states are not willing to take on board and implement at the national level. The lack of the political will is also there. It's not that they don't understand the grave violations that are happening, but it might not be on the political agenda of most states to actually enforce and implement these decisions that come from regional bodies. So the will is not there, the commitment is not there as well. There's also the resource constraints. I don't want to make excuse for states, but this also is a challenge for most governments in Africa, especially in terms of reparation and payment of compensation to victims. Thirdly, there is absence of an implementation framework.
But the Institute says this crisis is fixable. The report outlines practical, administratively feasible steps.
The first being to strengthen national implementation mechanisms, to establish a dedicated implementation mechanism, designate national focal points, create implementation databases and tracking systems, and also develop implementation roadmaps and timelines. The second recommendation looks at strengthening domestic legal frameworks, empower national courts to enforce regional judgments, adopt national implementation policies, and clarify implementation procedures. Four, we need to adopt a victim-centered approach. Every approach that we take needs to be very victim-centered.
The legal framework says the quote, victories have been won. Now, the report warns it is up to Africa's leaders to prove that human rights on the continent are a reality, not just a promise on paper. Maria Madem reported for Star TV News. The Gambia Revenue Authority has launched a major technical assistance mission in partnership with the African Tax Administration Forum and the World Bank Group. The joint initiative aims to boost the GRS capacity to handle complex transfer, pricing, and tackle cross-border tax evasion. Our intern Aziz Jata reports.
The Gambia Revenue Authority has officially welcomed an important technical assistance mission on transfer pricing on Monday, 18 May, jointly supported by the African Tax Administration Forum and the World Bank Group. Speaking at the opening of the program, the Commissioner General explained that the mission will concentrate on two critical areas of transfer pricing work aimed at improving staff readiness for real cases.
I am glad to note that this in-country mission will focus specifically on functional and comparability analysis and two critical components of the transfer pricing administration. Through practical case studies and audit simulations, we expect our staffs will further strengthen their technical competence and operational readiness in handling transfer pricing matters.
ITAF transfer pricing specialist Betty Awera explained the program's goals and ITAF's vision to prevent transfer mispricing across Africa during the session.
Is to enhance revenue collections for tax administrations and by growing efficient and effective tax systems, especially in Africa. And why is this the case? When we look at in 2015, when you read the Thabo Mbeki report, it indicated that Africa on an annual basis loses about 50 billion USD due to illicit financial flows, and these are partly contributed by transfer mispricing.
The Deputy Commissioner of Tax Audit highlighted the importance of transfer pricing in collecting revenue, ensuring compliance, and maximizing revenue collection to strengthen national fiscal stability.
As you all know, we are in the business of collecting revenue. Not only collecting, but also maximizing the revenues that we collect. We want to make sure everybody pays their fair share of taxes whenever you're doing business in this country, whether you are resident or non-resident. So transfer pricing is basically a means of shifting profit from one jurisdiction to the other.
The technical assistance mission is expected to strengthen GRA's ability to manage transfer pricing cases and improve compliance across sectors with cross-border activity. By combining the international expertise with local training, the program aims to build a more specialized team within the authority and support long-term efforts to safeguard revenue and enhance fiscal stability in the Gambia. For Star TV News, I am Aziz Jata.
The National Scorpions Fans Club has kicked off its Silver Jubilee celebration, swapping their stadium drums for brooms and rakes. Partnering with the Kanifing Municipal Council, the country's most vibrant football fan base led a massive cleanup exercise at the busy Serekunda market. The initiative brought together football enthusiasts, local artists, and comedians to promote a cleaner Gambia. Aji Fatu Jallo reports.
It was a lively atmosphere at the Serekunda market as the National Scorpions Fans Club proved that their loyalty goes far beyond the football pitch. Aiming to foster a clean and green Gambia, the group mobilized citizens from all walks of life to clear waste and sanitize the market space, all while being cheered on by traditional singers. Among the prominent figures lending their strength to the cause was local musician Barham Cham. He expressed deep gratitude to the participants, reminding citizens that national development is a collective responsibility while calling on philanthropists to financially back the fans club. Popular comedian Ali Job, widely known as The Liver, was also on the ground. He passionately challenged Gambian youth to take the lead in civic duties, emphasizing that the country's hygiene relies heavily on its young population.
This is a task for the youth. If we don't clean our own country, we can't expect foreigners to come out and do it for us. I urge all young people out there, no matter how busy your schedule is, to come out and take part in this cleaning exercise.
This community cleanup serves as the curtain raiser for the fans club's landmark 25th anniversary. As the group hits its silver jubilee milestone, Modu Lamin Sanyang, the advisor to the National Scorpions Fans Club, sent a clear message to the government and corporate Gambian that they will soon be knocking on the doors for crucial sponsorships.
The stakeholders, the private sectors, they are our partners as far as sports is concerned in this country. And in this celebration, they are part and parcel of that celebration. The Gambia government, under the leadership of His Excellency Adama Barrow, being our chief patron of the National Scorpion Fans Club, this is your show, this is our share. We are telling you, sir, we are in our silver jubilee. You have a role to play. The Gambia Football Federation.
Reflecting on a quarter century of unwavering dedication to Gambian football, the club's Secretary General, Omar Job, highlighted that this market clean-up is just the beginning of a series of events designed to give back to the community.
This game with the national team players, the professional players that will be on holiday in town, we're doing this game together with them as the National Scorpion Fans Club 25-year anniversary, together with Ibrahima Sohna retirement game. Then we will be doing our second game in Birkama, which will be on the 27th of June. It's going to be the same thing, the one in Serekunda East, with the national team players on holiday in town, together with Ibrahima Sohna retirement game.
The deep roots the club has planted over the last 25 years were also evident in the testimonies of the local business community. Prominent businessman Njai Chara praised the club's inclusivity, proudly pointing to the Scorpions logo displayed in his shop and noting that his strong bond with the organization even led him to employ one of its dedicated fans. Looking ahead, the club has a packed anniversary calendar over the coming months. Citizens can look forward to a massive tree planting campaign, a critical blood donation drive at the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, and a grand finale on October 31st, when the club will host its highly anticipated gala dinner and award night. From the stands of the stadium to the trading floors of the Serekunda market, the National Scorpions Fans Club is redefining what it means to be a patriot, proving that loving your country means keeping it clean, green, and well supported. For Star TV News, this is Ajifatu Jallo.
From the report, we'll now take a short commercial break, and when we return, the news continues. Stay tuned. Welcome back after that short commercial break. If you're just tuning in, you're watching this Saturday Newsroom and we're broadcasting from our studios here in Kanifing. I am Maria Abnubseka and thanks for joining us. Let's now shift our attention to some international news. Fear is spreading across Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo after authorities confirmed an Ebola case in the city of Goma. Rwanda has temporarily closed its main border crossing with Goma as a precautionary measure to prevent possible cross-border transmission, impacting one of the region's busiest trade and travel routes. The outbreak, first reported in Ituri province, has prompted increased surveillance and emergency health measures as medical teams work to contain infections in Bunia and surrounding areas. Residents say they are worried about the spread of the virus in a region already affected by ongoing insecurity and humanitarian challenges, with memories of past deadly Ebola outbreaks still fresh. Health authorities say contact tracing and screening efforts are being reinforced, but concerns remain over response capacity in conflict-affected areas. More in this report.
Fear is spreading across Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo after authorities confirmed an Ebola case in the city of Goma. Rwanda has now temporarily closed its main border crossing with the city, one of the busiest in the region, as officials try to prevent possible cross-border transmission. For many residents here, the outbreak is reviving memories of previous Ebola epidemics that killed thousands in Eastern Congo.
We're worried about this Ebola outbreak because we have very bad memories of what happened in the past with Ebola. It may be worse if nothing is done. We hope authorities will take strong measures against this outbreak.
The current outbreak began in Ituri province, where health workers are struggling to contain infection around Bunya and Ruapara. Medical teams have increased surveillance and protective measures, but concern remain high among residents.
We've been hearing about deaths around here for weeks now, and we don't see much in terms of medical treatment. If the spread continues the way it is, we are worried that Uganda could close the border, and that would make life even harder for communities here.
Health officials say the constant movement of people between Ituri, North Kivu and neighboring countries increases the risk of the outbreak spreading. Authorities had initially feared the suspected case in the capital Kinshasa could signal broader transmission, although medical officials later declared that test negative. In Goma, under control of fighters from the M23 group and already isolated by months of conflict and the closure of its main airport, the outbreak presents another major challenge.
Dès que le cas de Ebola a été déclaré à Bunia,
as soon as the outbreak was declared in Bunia town, we quickly put in place a preventative measure to deal with potential cases. And today we have confirmed one. We have activated all different contingency plans to protect our population under our control.
But uncertainty remains over how an effective response can be maintained in a conflict zone where negotiations over aid corridors remain unresolved. Here in Goma, concerns are rising after an Ebola case was confirmed. Rwanda has closed its border crossing and people are worried the outbreak could further strain a region already affected by conflict and humanitarian challenges. Health officials say surveillance, contact tracing and screening operations are being reinforced across affected areas as efforts continue to stop the outbreak from spreading further across the region. Alen Waikani, Al Jazeera, Goma, DRC.
For a third week, an Al-Qaeda-linked armed group has tightened its blockade around Mali's capital, Bamako, increasing pressure on supply routes into the landlocked country. Mali relies on neighboring countries like Ivory Coast for fuel and food, but transport routes have become more dangerous with truck drivers facing growing risks. Al Jazeera's Nicholas Hag reports from Abidjan, Ivory Coast.
He drove through the night from a city under siege, dodging fighters on the road. Finally safe at the port of Abidjan in Ivory Coast, Abdurrahman Bacharu waits to load his truck with wheat bound for Bamako in central Mali, where food supplies are running low. Their journey back is frightening, he says. Members of the Al-Qaeda-linked JNIM group hiding along the route, operating checkpoints, deciding who passes.
I am worried about my country, but I will not stop working. Even though the country is going through a crisis and nothing is moving, we are the only ones providing a lifeline and bringing things in.
And this is what JNIM checkpoints in Mali often look like. Young men, sometimes barely out of their teens, on motorbikes with machine guns mounted on the back. Fast, mobile and lightly equipped, they stop trucks and buses on key roads leading to Bamako. Drivers say fighters search vehicles, force passengers off buses, and separate men and women according to their interpretation of Islamic law. Armed groups have also burned some trucks carrying food and goods. The blockade is choking the flow of supplies and spreading fear. Landlocked Mali depends on the port of Abidjan for goods, food and fuel. Here, Malian truck drivers gather to share concerns, warnings and tips on which routes may still be passable. The president of the West African Union of Truck Drivers has come to reassure them.
Preventing these vehicles from moving and delivering food to people is in effect condemning the population. That's why we continue to appeal to armed groups to allow these trucks to pass.
There is, in their attempt to keep supplies moving towards Bamako, an air of defiance against fear, intimidation, and a blockade designed to make the Malian people surrender. Nicholas Hawk, Al Jazeera, Abidjan, Ivory Coast.
Now, I'm afraid that story brings us to the end of this news bulletin, but before we go, a quick recap of main headlines. URR communities promised President Barrow 99.9% support following several infrastructure launches. President Barrow launches massive 44-kilometer rural road project in Woolly and Sandu districts. Now, in Africa's human rights cases, regional legal rulings often fail to deliver justice to victims. GRA partners with World Bank and ATAF to tackle cross-border tax evasion. And Scorpions Fans Club swaps drums for brooms to launch 25th anniversary at Serekunda Market. On international news, Ebola case in Goma triggers border closure as fears grow in eastern DR Congo. Mali truck drivers defy armed group blockade to keep Bamako supplied. That's all we have for you in this edition of the news. Do join us tomorrow for another bulletin. But in the meantime, do enjoy the rest of our programs and have a wonderful night. Thanks for watching.